We're now absolutely delighted to have George Mattson, the CEO of Wheels Up. I'm really hoping he's not wearing a tracksuit 2 years running. 2 years in a row. I have a feeling it's going to be never. But it's great to have George up here. George, yeah. So you've been running Wheels Up for a year now. Are you enjoying it?
First of all, good morning, everybody. I can't believe it's been a year, by the way. Let's start with that. I sat up here with you, Alistair, like 4 weeks into the job, I think, and drinking from a fire hose. I'm still drinking from a fire hose, but the short answer to your question is I am enjoying it because I think we're doing something. I think we've made a lot of progress, and we'll talk about that. But I also think we're doing something, our team, very unique, very distinctive. And I think we're filling a place in private aviation that's going to expand the industry.
So you came in with a lot of experience in commercial aviation, and not so much in business. You know, you ran transport banking when you were at Goldman. You were on the Delta board for many years.
I also was an early investor in a company called Tropic Ocean Airways. That's a Part 135 operator here in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. So I had a little bit of experience, but it was mostly, as you say, commercial.
What attracted you to Wheels Up?
When I looked at Wheels Up, and I had some history with Wheels Up from my vantage point on the Delta board, when Delta sold Delta Private Jets to Wheels Up in late 2019, it started and closed in early 2020, about 4 weeks before this thing called COVID showed up. I had a chance to spend some time with the Delta management team looking at Wheels Up quite closely. And what I saw then and what I saw when I was considering the role last year was a company that had grown very quickly, a company with a big brand, a company with a lot of loyal customers, a company that was having operational challenges that I thought could be addressed, and were already being addressed, and we've made a lot of progress on that in our first year, as you know. And I saw an opportunity with the Delta partnership to do something very unique, right? To really, for the first time, merge into one offering, into one go-to-market strategy, a premium commercial global airline with a private aviation company. And I thought that was going to unlock a lot of opportunity, a lot of value, and a lot of profitable growth once we got the operation set up for success.
So when you sat down a year ago and you went, in my first 100 days, I want to accomplish this. In my first year, I want to accomplish that.
Yep.
What were your priorities in the first year?
Yeah, so the first and most important thing was to come in and really assess our situation from the inside out. The other thing I had to do immediately, obviously, was stabilize the business, right? The business had gone through a very challenging period, needed to stabilize the customer base, stabilize the team, and then very quickly turn our attention to the operation. And when I started really looking deeply into the operation, what I found was that perception was lagging reality, right? We had no doubt had some real operational challenges, as most private aviation companies had through the turbocharged growth of COVID, but our operation was actually doing better than people realized. And so we made the decision in my first quarterly earnings call, and since on every other earnings call, to publicly disclose our operating statistics, and I invited our competitors to do the same. No one's done it yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. And so we had to stabilize the operation. The third big thing was build a great team, and I'm incredibly happy with the team that we started with. By the way, we started with a great team as a foundation, but in the last year we've added some tremendous talent from commercial aviation, not just Delta, but other places, private aviation. And really try to build a mosaic, if you will, of team members who have deep experience operating at scale, but also understand the nimbleness and unique attributes of private aviation at the same time. We needed to build a multi-year plan and strategy, which we did this year and went through over the course of this summer with our board. And then we needed to build a fleet strategy that supported that plan. And that's what we announced at NBAA.
Yeah. How long is your multi-year plan?
We presented a 3-year plan to the board. So we have a plan, an internal plan through 2027.
Okay. And has anything surprised you about private aviation?
Look, it's clearly a luxury purchase. There's a lot of loyalty to the different providers. One of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about is the different models, right? Commercial aviation largely has a similar model. I mean, there's some point-to-point, hub and spoke, but everybody's basically offering something that's somewhat standardized, although at very different levels of quality. Private aviation has very different models, right? You have owned aircraft, which, by the way, is still the biggest part of the market. You have fractional, which is the next biggest part, and then you have, on-demand charter. And one of the things that we had to really think about is where do we want to sit in that ecosystem? And look, what we chose as a strategy was a blend of on-fleet membership and global charter through the great acquisition we made of Air Partner. And we chose customer centricity and solutions as the real kind of North Star for what we were going to try to build, right? I think that's what we offer, and that's what we are kind of working to build behind.
So one of the things you announced at MBAA base is a fleet modernization.
Yep.
Do you want to explain a bit more about that?
Sure. Early on, I realized that we were a little behind where we wanted to be in the age and desirability of our fleet, and the complexity of our fleet, right? We were flying 4 fleet types in 3 classes, aircraft that the team this year has done an incredible job really improving the reliability of. But as we really want to shift our focus to something that more closely aligns with the premium offerings of Delta and the premium end of the market, we realized we needed a different fleet. And so we started working many months ago, and I teased it in my last earnings call, and then we obviously announced it, but on the fleet. And what we looked really for is what are the most desirable, best-selling aircraft in the respective classes? How can we have fewer fleets, not more fleets? Where can we look for these aircraft in large pools of an install base and a secondary market where you can acquire enough of them to get to fleet scale? And we settled on the Phenom 300, 300E, and the Challenger 300, 350. Both best, and I'm not just saying that because Michael Malfitano is probably in the audience, but there you are. Hey, Mike, checks in the mail. The Phenom 300 is an incredible aircraft, which really, frankly, serves the needs of our existing mission scope for the CJ3, the Hawker 400 XP, and the Citation XL, XLS to a large extent. And then the Challenger 300, 350. We were very fortunate to have an opportunity to buy the largest operator of Phenoms, on-demand charter Phenoms, Grandview Aviation, in a transaction that's closing very, 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 very soon. And we're very excited to be able to immediately introduce that Phenom aircraft into the fleet. We're going to build a fleet of Challengers. As I said at NBAA, starting early next year, we'll have those in our fleet. We expect to get to scale by the end of next year. And we couldn't be more excited. And look, these are aircraft which are known for incredibly high customer satisfaction, incredibly high reliability, operating efficiency, and they're really the go-to aircraft of corporate fleets, both aircraft types around the world. And we think that's going to be a big unlock also behind our Delta sales strategy as well on the corporate side. And
let's go through how you've improved operating efficiency. What's the secret behind that?
Well, look, I'm not sure there's a secret. It's just, it comes down to incredibly disciplined and focused execution every day. I think it starts with having an intention to be excellent in operations. And so the first thing I said, which probably sounded like an overly bold statement, was we're going to be the best run private aviation company in the industry. We're going to follow the Delta playbook, which I had been part of that journey as Delta went from kind of mediocre to excellent over the prior 10 or 12 years. And we're going to get a little bit better every day. As I mentioned earlier, I think perception was lagging reality, but day one, we made that statement. Day one, we told people we were going to share how we were doing each quarter. Day one, we moved the headquarters to the operations center, right? We got out of the glass office building in New York. My office is in the operations center. Our whole leadership team almost entirely is in the operations center. We just finished a mini construction project. It's been a bit of a construction site for the last few months, but that's done, thank God. But that's what it starts with. And then I spent, most of my time in the first couple of months just really digging in and understanding what we needed to do to get better. We have some tremendous leaders there, starting with Dave Holtz, who ran the operation at Delta for 10 years. During those years of improvement, we changed a number of people on the team. And we immediately saw huge moves that, looked insurmountable in maintenance availability, dispatch availability, recovery rates. And these things cost money, right? The best way to make money is stop losing money, right? And when your aircraft, leave on time, arrive on time, and are reliable, it really drives P&L benefit as well, which you saw in the quarterly earnings announcement we made last week as well.
How significant was it moving from New York to Atlanta culturally for the whole company?
I think it was significant. I think it made a statement that we're going to be an operations-centric company, that we're going to align with our neighbors down the road, down I-85, a few miles, but depending on traffic, it could be an hour or two in Atlanta. And I think it was also part of it, Alistair, was the company had never really come back to work from COVID, right? The operations folks were in, but we were also having this sort of, how do we get people back to the office from COVID? And so that was part of it as well. And look, I happen to believe that, particularly in this industry, which is the ultimate team sport, you really need people sitting side by side solving problems, not, hundreds or thousands of miles away from each other.
So one of the things you did as part of the restructuring, and it started before you came, is you went, we're going to, not concentrate on the middle of America. We're going to put zones in. We're going, we're going for more of a hub and spoke rather than flying in the middle of nowhere to pick up one passenger and coming back empty. How are you balancing retention and attracting new people?
Yeah. So one of the first things we had to do is really understand who our core members were. And how we could best serve them in one of two models, the programmatic membership model or the global charter solutions model. And one of the very important things that I think we did is really move the needle of where we're delighted to bring customers into the fold to sort of the center of that spectrum. I think the company has been a very membership-centric company. I think we've got some great membership offerings. We made a big announcement in June clarifying the membership offering, really focusing on that core flyer who puts down a deposit, transitioning a lot of the membership categories that had existed up until that point, Connect, Pay As You Fly, to more of a charter approach. And we've started to tie our charter and programmatic businesses more closely together. And so, look, the message we deliver to customers is we have a solution for you, whether you live in New York or Florida, or whether you live in the middle of America. It may not be the exact same solution, but between our programmatic on-fleet membership offering or our charter offering, and again, we're one of the largest charter brokers in the world, and we're very global. We have a solution for everyone, and that's sort of how we pivoted a little bit to where we are. But we stopped trying to force everything into one size box, if you will. And the idea of, flying King Airs out to North Dakota to pick somebody up to fly them to South Dakota was just, obviously that doesn't work. So,
we've got a great question from the audience. What synergies do you see with commercial airlines, and what have you managed to adopt?
Yeah. So there's several synergies with commercial airlines, and I'll start specifically with Delta, obviously, as our strategic partner in this one-of-a-kind partnership we have. Delta has 45,000 corporate customers, and in many of those cases, they're the number one travel provider. And so you think about, the channels of demand that we can start to tap. We're working arm in arm with the Delta corporate sales team every day to make sure that those corporate customers understand that they can really add Wheels Up to their Delta corporate relationship, which has existed for decades, kind of within that framework. Second, you think about loyalty programs. Delta has 20 million SkyMiles members, active SkyMiles members. They have lots of data on these members. A very small percentage of those SkyMiles members are private aviation flyers or prospects, but a small percentage of 20 million people is a big number. And so there's a huge opportunity there as well. More broadly, I would say that if it's true that 90% of people who can afford to fly private have never flown private, well, where are they? Well, they're sitting in the front of the cabin in the commercial airlines. And it's not a question of converting them in their entirety for all their flying to private. It's a question of meeting them in a place where they can choose trip by trip what mode of travel they need. Today, it's a Delta or American Airlines or whoever it is, first class ticket to Atlanta or New York, and tomorrow it's something for business, and the next day it's something for pleasure, and the third, and then it's going to Europe commercial and transferring to a private aviation solution. That's what I think a partnership with a commercial airline unlocks. And I think it not only is great for our business, but I think it's also great for the industry, because I think it's going to bring people into the industry. I think it's going to demystify how to access the industry. And again, focusing on solutions, not products, not sort of, putting everybody in a blue or red jersey as to what type of flyer they are, and just meeting them trip by trip.
There's a nice question from Richard Coe. How is the Delta investment, not takeover, changed?
I thought there was some news being made this morning.
You can announce something if you want. Change the customer type mix for Wheels Up.
I think that what we've seen through the Delta partnership is that the opportunities we have within the corporate space are growing rapidly. Historically, Wheels Up has been an individual flyer, individual member-centric company. Leisure individual customers were a much larger percentage of our total than corporate. Corporate is growing faster, and I think is going to come into alignment, probably in a relative balance, 50-50 or something like that, with leisure over time. And so we're seeing, I think that's going to be the difference, Alistair, is we, I think, now have a corporate strategy, we have an individual strategy, we have an on-demand programmatic strategy, a charter strategy, and it's all wrapped within this Delta partnership.
Okay, we've got more questions coming in, flying in.
All right.
This is one from yesterday. It's Ken, not Kenny. Yesterday, Kenrique mentioned that a third of his fleet is down at any time for maintenance. Do you see it as a similar number?
Look, directionally, yes. I mean, one of the things about private aviation is, your fleet is floating. If you're utilizing, as Ken does or as we do, your aircraft with a view toward driving utility, you're working the aircraft pretty hard. And so between scheduled and unscheduled maintenance, the aircraft are down a fair amount. What you want it to be, obviously, is scheduled, not unscheduled, because the unscheduled comes with a customer cost, and it also comes with a financial cost that's different. But yeah, it's, the number seems directionally right. I mean, we want to do much better than that. And I do think, by the way, one of the big unlocks with our new fleet is we're going to see a very significant move from where we are now, which is probably somewhere in that zip code, to, I think, a different zip code.
You've come in, you've done a big restructuring of the company. It's a very different company to where it was 2 years ago. It's in a much better state than it was 13 months ago. Where do you see the growth in the next 3 years?
Yeah. So look, first of all, it has been a very challenging couple of years for the company. I agree with you. I think we have really, in the first year, stabilized the business, and I think we're now, and this is what I talked about on my earnings call last week, we're now poised for growth. After 7 consecutive quarters of revenue decline, we've now stabilized. While we've stabilized revenues, we've actually grown our contribution margins, our gross margins, 15 points in 3 quarters. That's pretty hard to do with stable revenues in particular. And so now I think we're poised for growth. And I think the growth is going to come, as it always does in any business, private aviation or otherwise, by offering customers something they want to buy, by offering customers something that's easy to access, by offering customers something that is flexible and meets their needs, not your needs. And that's what we talk about every day: customer centricity, easy to access, flexible solutions, not having to pre-commit for years in advance as to how much you're going to fly or how little you're going to fly or what type of airplane you're going to fly. And so that's what we're trying to do. I think we're going to grow our programmatic business. I think we're going to continue to grow our charter business, which has been growing very rapidly and very profitably for many years. And so that's what I see. I think the market has long-term tailwinds. I think as commercial aviation becomes more challenging in many respects, if you can offer a pathway to private aviation that's easy to access, you're going to see people, maybe it's for 1 trip or 2 trips or 5 trips a year, not all of their trips, but you're going to see people wanting to come into this industry, and we want to be the people to help them come in.
Mike Francis is asking, will there be, and actually someone else had asked about the app, will there be a time when you can book a truly integrated end-to-end solution using the Delta app? Or?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We do see, and Ed and I spent some time last week talking about this with our team and also in a couple of other media events we did. There is going to come a day, and we're working on it now, it's going to take a bit of time, where you'll be able to go on our app and see integrated solutions with Delta solutions. You can go on the Delta app and it'll give you a commercial option, a private option, and a hybrid option. There will be triggers that say if a customer's spending whatever, $10,000, $12,000 to get from New York to Palm Beach over President's Day weekend or Miami, for X dollars more, you can go private. All of this is coming within the digital solutions that we're looking at and working on together. Look, we already have a great digital strategy, and more than half of our bookings are done completely digitally. We always want to have a person on the other end of the phone to answer questions if people want to access us that way, and we do a lot of that as well. But yeah, our digital strategy will be integrated into an ability to access all of the tools we offer on your phone.
Okay, the big question that I'm shocked no one in the audience has asked: when will you be profitable? We have, I mentioned, we've seen our contribution margins expand 1,500 basis points in the last 3 quarters. We've also seen a steady walk in our EBITDA loss every quarter this year, 49 million in the first quarter, 37, I think it was in the second, 20 in the third. You should expect that to continue. We have indicated for 2 years now, long before I got here, that we wanted to be EBITDA profitable by the end of this year. We have a fighting chance in the fourth quarter, and we're working on it every day. This Grandview Aviation transaction has added some headwinds, right? We're buying 17 airplanes we weren't planning on in the quarter when we made that statement in 2022. But we have a fighting chance, and our team is very motivated to get there. Whether we get there or we fall a little short, we'll see. But what we did say last week, and what we are very committed to, is we will be profitable in 2025 for the full year. And this fleet transition is really the next leg of our profitability journey and really unlocks a tremendous amount of margin as we implement that. Okay, honest answer. In the last...
Unlike all the other ones?
Unlike the profit one. In the last 12 months, how many times have you regretted taking this job? Because you had a lovely life before that.
I still have a good life. Of sleeping in a hotel. I didn't sleep well last night, but other than that, I have a great life. I haven't really regretted it at all, Alistair. I knew what I was getting into day one. I knew that this was going to be full on, pedal to the metal. I knew that time was important. I knew we'd have to work really, really hard. But I also knew that we would either see great results from this or not fairly quickly. So the pain wouldn't last very long either way. And we've seen great results. And I'm so proud of the team and what the 2,000 plus people of Wheels Up have accomplished in the last year. I mean, I was sitting here with you, as I said, a year ago, man, I mean, I didn't know what was going on at that point, right? And we were really trying to figure it out. But we've made enormous progress. And look, part of this job, particularly when you are trying to lead a company through a turnaround, which is really more of a transformation than a turnaround, because turnaround implies we're turning it around to something that was. We're really transforming it into something that it will be. You have to believe, and you have to believe every day. And even when you get out of bed and you're not feeling 100%, you have to be 100%. And I try to come to work every day that way. My team comes to work every day that way. Operationally, commercially, some days are better than others. But you just keep moving forward, and that's what we're doing.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, George.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.